Hi everyone, and welcome to another TikTok live where essentially anything can happen and does. The realm of infinite possibility and spontaneity.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Evening.
Evening.
Evening. So first things first, can you see the picture?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good start.
We'll have to check with Jennifer when she
Yeah,
arrives because she's the one that complains all the time.
Jennifer's usually the one that it doesn't work for, so we'll have to see whether it works for her. But yeah, okay, so there's two yeses.
And
That's a
she's
good
got a
start.
wind-up phone, I think.
Does she have like a small phone screen or something?
No, I think it's bigger than mine, I think.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Maybe it just sets hers out slightly differently or something then.
Hmm. Hey, guess what I got? I got some resistance bands, for exercise, right?
All right, you mean a bit like the ones that you'd wear like if you was on a plane with like the little button on or something.
Oh, I don't know that bit. These are just kind of like very kind of stretchy, kind of plastic which stretches.
Right.
I hope somebody's not going to tell me they ain't vegan. The and so I've been looking at a couple of videos about how to use them, and you've got them for older people. And then I just see this young guy, and you can anchor them to doors and all kind of stuff. But it's really weird because it was so obvious what he was saying. Kind of, well, if you want to put it at the top of the door, don't put it at the side of the, to pull down because it'll come down. So you've got to go over the top. I mean, it was kind of like really kind of 101, kind of dead obvious stuff.
Yeah.
Big rubber bands. Yeah, that's right. They look like big rubber bands.
Oh, Jennifer can't see it. Okay.
Jennifer can't see it.
No, she's just said I can't see that banner. How much is it cut off to the point that it's unreadable or?
Now this might sound obvious, Jennifer, but there's something weird about you.
I'm just trying to work out like where the difference is so I can try and. Okay, it's bad. That means I probably can't fix it, which means I might just have to change the banner.
Yeah, what it needs really is that when we do banners, you need to leave a bit at the bottom blank, isn't it? And so you have all the writing at the top part of it. See, on my screen, it doesn't go all the way to the top.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so if we would think about it as a
Or if it was simply inverted, in the sense that it was a black background with white writing.
well, it depends where it is on the screen, not the color, surely.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was like that, you wouldn't see the white, so there'd be no difference.
If you want to talk to vegans about supplements, you've come to the wrong place because
Is that
Andy
one better?
never taken any, and I didn't take any for the first 30. I think it was about 32 years of veganism. I never took one. Quite a lot of the old, the what you call it, the old style vegans. They haven't really taken vitamins, and the only one I've ever taken in my entire life is a once a day multivitamin, and most of the time I forget.
Oh no. Do you not feel yourself, on the days that you forget, do you not feel like you're wasting away?
Doesn't make any difference. No.
That's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah.
yeah.
Because
And
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it something ridiculous, like a number of years before these deficiencies actually develop into anything anyway? Like
oh
for
well, when we talk,
B12, for example.
yeah, B12 was always the one. So I went vegan in 1979, and people said that you've got enough B12 in your system to last for 30 years. And
Right.
I think that has been debunked since then. But that was, but you see, I think that was one of the reasons why the early type vegans didn't bother about supplements because we thought we were going to hit a problem later on. And so long as our blood work kept good, and my last blood work, which is out of date now, but my last blood work, the doctor said it was better than hers. And she said it's one of the best results she's seen in my age group. So you can't kind of, but I'm not careful with my diet or anything. There's this idea that vegans have got to be some kind of nutritional experts or zens or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, between the pair of us, we're not the best. So,
No.
I mean, I've made it quite clear a number of times that personally for me, food is just fuel. Food is just something I have to do to survive. I don't have any interest in it or any passion about it or any of that stuff. I just don't. It's
Vegan.
certainly not inaugural to being a vegan, is it? That you need to know about nutrition or even enjoy cooking or any of that stuff. It's just not.
No, George is saying vegans are putting together 100 different chemicals to resemble food instead of eating an egg. Well, are you talking about kind of plant-based? These kind of experiments with plant-based egg replacement? Because a lot of vegans just won't bother with it, really. And if they're opposed to chemicals, they won't bother with it. It's not as though. See, there's this kind of myth, really, that if there's a vegan product, we've got to eat it. Like we don't have to eat avocados. We don't have to eat almonds.
It looks like we've got a genuine question. Can you please explain what vegan is? I mean, you're not going to get a better person than Roger to explain it to you.
Oh, yes. Well, we first start off by saying that veganism is a philosophy. So it's a philosophy which is kind of set on the screen there. It's about justice, peace, respect, non-violence. It was seen as part of the peace movement when the vegan social movement came into being, which was 1944. Now, the Second World War didn't finish till 1945. And so right at the end of the war, I always like to say that the vegans declared peace. And in one particular way, some of the older ones, they'd seen the Second World War and the First World War, and they thought that we'd become a very kind of violent species, humanity. And so they were trying to work out, well, what's wrong with us? Why have we become so violent? And what do we need to do to get out of it? And they came to the conclusion that you need a set of values, which turned out to be what we now call veganism. So we need to have respect for justice, peace, we need to have respect for others' rights. So all those things bound together is a bit of a recipe. That is veganism.
We've got a guest request, so I was just waiting for you to finish before I accepted them, just in case.
Oh, I should have just carried on then. Define veganism. Okay, I'll take that one. Donald Watson said that veganism is the opposite.
Meat is very yummy.
Sorry? Oh, okay. I don't think you're old enough to be on this live. Or still awake.
But it is true. Nobody's saying that flesh can't be made yummy if it's cooked properly and if it's seasoned properly. That's not the issue.
No, I mean, yeah. There's plenty of things, as we went into quite a detail yesterday. There's plenty of things that people get a personal satisfaction out or personally enjoy doing that we know to be morally wrong. It doesn't answer the question.
Yeah. So Jennifer, can you see this banner? Because if you could see this one and not the other one, that's weird, because this one actually goes lower down on the screen for me than the other one.
Yeah, so for me now, although the comments go as far as respect, because you've still got the black in the background as opposed to the white like before, I can read them fine.
Okay, so yeah, I still don't. I'm not quite sure why the color bit.
Yeah, so the problem that Jim's just typed out, that's the problem that I had before. Where respect was before was the bottom of that white, and the top comments would be completely invisible because they'd be white.
Oh yeah, but we weren't talking about the comment. We were talking about the banner itself, weren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, Jennifer couldn't see the actual banner, whereas she can see this one, which is lower down.
It must be. So it must be the same as the one we had yesterday with the barcode. So it must be, as long as it's like completely centrally aligned and there's a gap either side, she can see it. But if it fills the full screen, it obviously cuts off for her.
Oh, I thought it was the bottom that was cutting off, not the sides.
I'm only guessing it's the side because before it was like it needs to move to the right, so I'm guessing it shows.
Oh, right. Perhaps we've been, well, Jennifer, is it the sides that were cut off then? Because that would be easier to correct then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it just basically means that I need to keep it as it is there, like mid central aligned completely.
And do it like portrait style kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I've got no problem retyping out the Donald Watson quote so that we can have it just very similar to that rather than in a picture form, and then it should fit fine. And I'll do that for the next show.
Oh, it's the left-hand side that was cut off. Yeah, okay, right. All right then. So what we need to do then is not worry about the length of them. It's the width of them that was a problem. I didn't realize that.
It's the width that's different for everyone. I suppose that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Vegans probably think backflipping hurts the environment. That's a new one. This is a bit of imagination behind that. I mean, as far as I'm aware, backflipping is not conflicting with veganism in any way, shape, or form. As long
I'll
as
be
you're
doing backflipping in 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah, as long as you're not causing any harm to anyone else, you can backflip as much as you like.
Yeah. Actually, that's one of the weirdest comments we've had for a long time.
Yes, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of imagination there at least.
Yeah. Backflip. Why backflip?
Hello, everyone that's joined. Yeah, if you could do that, Jennifer, if you take a screenshot of it and then send it to Roger, I'll know exactly what the problem is, and I can kind of, if I know it works for you, it works for everyone else.
Yeah, you're our canary in the coal mine, which is probably not
I use you as the stooge. I use you as the model.
Yeah.
As long as it works for you, then we should be good. But
Well,
yeah, hello everyone. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well, and you've had a good
what
weekend.
vegan food's got the most protein? I'm not totally sure. Do you, Andy? I mean,
in terms of veg and stuff, I think it's a number of things, but in terms of like the meat replacement meals, all of them, because they shove it in everything. Like literally all of those meals that people consider, like, you know, when they ask us why would they make plant-based food to look like animal products or whatever, all of those meals that are kind of aimed at that transition audience are massively fortified with all of those things, because obviously they're trying to overcompensate for people's concerns. I mean, it's the same with B12. It's kind of just sort of like dabbled in everything.
but for years and years, cornflakes have been full of B12, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, and plant milks are full of B12.
Yeah. I mean, I think every kind of plant milk, regardless of sort of like the flavorings or whatever, or what the plant is, I think they all contain fortified B12.
Yeah. And you know, what's it got? Nutritional yeast, that's full of B12.
Nutritional yeast is, highly B12. In fact, I mean, I know a couple of people in the past that have been told to go easy on Nooch purely because they're sort of overdoing it on the B12 and they're like peeing it out.
Oh, right. So is that the nickname for it? Nooch?
Nooch, nutritional yeast, yeah, Nooch.
Oh, right, okay. I think I've heard that phrase before. Show my age here, haven't I? So
yeah, but it's essentially one of the easiest ways to form a cheesy taste, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But you can chuck it in more or less anything.
Spike is a cheese lover. Do you subscribe, Andy, to this casomorphin kind of theory?
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting.
In the sense that if you think about it from our perspective, the whole kind of I'm assuming this is what you're talking about anyway. The whole idea of that being sort of like a bonding formula in terms of creating a bond between mother and baby, and you imagine then that sort of like extrapolated into us, then that's an addiction. That's a bond that's kind of designed.
Yeah, of course, the difference with cheese is it's concentrated, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Highly concentrated, yeah, compared to just the milk, especially natural milk, you know, from the udder, so to speak.
Yeah. So it kind of bonds the calf to the cow, this particular type of morphine, and apparently it behaves in the same area of the brain that heroin does.
Yeah, it's essentially when you kind of translate that to what it would be like for us consuming it, then yeah, it's an addiction, a serious addiction. I mean, in up there with sugar. And it's why the vast majority of time, especially if you have conversation with vegetarians, but if you have a conversation with someone that's genuinely interested, normally the number one thing that they struggle with the most is dairy for exactly that reason.
and cheese in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
of its addictive qualities. Yeah, it's not just the fact that they enjoy the taste, because they enjoy the taste of other things that they are kind of potentially willing to give up or stop using. But when it comes to dairy, yeah, because there's that high addiction level, which is explained kind of.
Yeah, well, whenever I've talked about casomorphine on the street stalls, people have regularly said, I often come down in the middle of the night, and the next thing I've kind of gone through a big chunk of, just eating it, just like as part of the block.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you tell them that story, they kind of like really relate to it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the first sort of flat that I moved out into when I was just 18, obviously I wasn't even vegetarian then, wasn't vegan at all, didn't even know what a vegan was. I can remember two of my flatmates having an almost fist fight in the middle of the night one night when one had gone down to make a sandwich and saw literally a bite, like the teeth mark out of a block of cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, literally woke the other guy up, and sort of they very nearly had a fist fight over it because he
So
took
it's
he
true.
took a bite.
Cheese is dangerous.
Whoa, I'm not. I mean, obviously that's very anecdotal and it's a single case, but yeah, it just shows, it's got different properties to say. If he'd have had a bite out of his cucumber, I don't think that there would have been the same escalation.
Why can't vegans just mind their own business?
Well,
Well,
we kind of are really with
we
a
are,
sort of
yeah.
fairly private live that you've decided to join and ask a question in. I mean, it's not like we tapped on your door.
It's more to do with the fact that if you think about lots of justice movements, they talk about the justice that concerns them.
Yeah.
So vegans, in that sense, are no different. There are loads of people now talking about Gaza.
Absolutely, yeah, great example. I mean, and talking about Gaza.
Yeah, why don't you people just mind your own business? It wouldn't make sense in that sense, is it?
No, it was exactly that, yeah.
No.
Or all the people that protest anything, really. Why don't they just mind their own business? Why don't they just get on with it? Because there's an injustice or a wrong somewhere that they oppose and they want to make those oppositions known and hopefully educate others about the fact that that's even occurring for the most part. Because that's the problem with a lot of these things. The vast majority of injustices that go on, the world are blind to. They happen before their eyes, but they happen in secret or they happen in ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, if people were interested in the kind of underfunding of the NHS, they've got to make that problem as they see it known, and it does fit in with the ripening up idea. So, the best known of the vegan co-founders, the vegan social movement, is called Donald Watson, and he said that people have to be ripened up to new ideas. All that means is that before people can decide whether animal rights theory makes sense to them or whether veganism as a philosophy makes sense to them, they've got to know about it. So we're bound to talk about it in order to give people the chance to assess our position.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Screw veganism, I need meat. Well,
And I mean, I'm not actually sure how it was actually, how you first went vegan, Roger. Actually, that's something I'm not 100% sure of. But like in terms of going vegetarian for me, that came from, I can't remember if it was a video and a post or just a post, but I remember it being a Facebook post. So if that person had never spoken up, who knows? And that's the kind of the same why we do these lives. There are other people that are interested in this subject who are either sat on the fence or at various stages of the way trying to work towards something, and they are interested. And it is sort of like we're speaking about the social injustice because it needs to be spoken about. If it's something that you truly don't care about, and that's quite concerning considering we're talking about injustice or when we're talking about oppression, these things that you should probably be concerned about. But if you're genuinely not, just scroll on. Go and watch a live where someone's singing and dancing, or go and watch a live where someone's begging you to tap the screen and send them money. Whatever interests you, just scroll on. There's plenty of other things, plenty of other options. Just ignore this live like you ignore animal oppression. Just ignore this live like you ignore all of the atrocities that go on everywhere else. Just pay no attention to it like you do with most things. It's that simple.
Yeah, Jim's asked an interesting question though. Wonder how many people would be vegan without the internet? Well, the thing is, quite a lot of people were vegan before the internet. For example, the Vegan Society appeared on the BBC in 1976 in a what was it, Open Door program? It was called.
Yeah, of course, but I suppose it's a very interesting point because I mean I know you've made the point before where we've spoken about like Reagan, and if only he was around sort of another 15 years afterwards and had the
Yeah,
beauty of the internet.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been a huge advantage, hasn't it? Especially in terms of like not just obviously the communication side of it, but in terms of like video footage or sharing of information or being able to just Google evidence.
Yeah, well, of course, we've got some other kind of big events like the Animals film being shown on Channel 4
Yeah, yeah,
was a big thing, and then of course that Animal Night thing, where
yes.
there was 1 million people tuned into that debate, and that was 1989. So
And the animals film was besides a very small part that was taken out, was played in its entirety, wasn't it? Without breaks.
yeah, it's over 2 hours long, and they took 8 minutes out for a really really interesting reason.
But I mean, just that alone, isn't it? 150, sorry, 1 hour 52 minutes of, without a break. That's unheard of in television terms. It's normally like 6 or 7 minutes advert, 10 minutes advert. Like, yeah, these are big things.
Yeah,
But
well, Channel 4 started off as a very radical idea. In fact, I saw a Benjamin Zephaniah interview about that very thing, that he was around, because he said that when alternative comics came in and when, he was a kind of poet and everything, Channel 4 became a really kind of brilliant outlet because they would allow you to do things that mainstream wouldn't allow you to do.
yeah, some of those like animal rights based like films or programs or whatever that have enhanced. Quite a lot of those were aired originally on Channel 4.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Some of
But
the
I
others
mean,
were aired on BBC Two as well.
yeah, I think now, to be honest, Channel 4 is just like another station now, though, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. I think once upon a time it used to kind of, because it used to have like dispatchers and things like that, didn't it? That used to pride itself on being a bit different and not afraid to sort of challenge things. And I don't think it does that anymore. I think it's just one of the channels now.
Cranston has a headache. Well, I would shut this down and probably close your eyes. I would think it might be better to do watching a screen.
I tried to pick as neutral colours as I could for that. I didn't pick anything that was too like bright or neon or anything like that. But yeah.
Yeah, Brookside was a proper socialist. So yeah, that is true. They raised things like domestic violence, marital rape, all kinds of issues that were seen as pretty groundbreaking in the time.
I can't remember Brooks. I remember Brookside the program like being on, but I don't ever remember watching it.
Yeah,
I can
it's based
remember
in
it, but I
Liverpool,
can't
isn't it?
remember ever watching a single episode.
Yeah, it's based in Liverpool, so it was a soap based in Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what year it ended, but I must have been still fairly young because I can remember the problem was obviously I say problem, but the reason that I didn't watch it was because my family didn't watch it, or I say family, my mum didn't watch it. She used to watch Once Upon a Time, Neighbours, Home and Away, then we'd have our dinner, then it would be Emmerdale, Coronation Street, EastEnders on some days. I'm not even joking, like there was 5 of them. But she didn't like Brookside.
Well, I'll tell you a weird story. When my PhD supervisor went to the States, he got a job in the States. We did a deal. He needed to get rid of it anyway, but he gave me this really massive hi-fi system, and he said, in return, I want you to tape Home and Away for me and send it to me. So I think I was sending it by VHS at one point, and then we'd learn how to translate it into
Limited to 3 hours VHS.
DVDs and that. And yeah, for a good couple of years, we were sending.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's some commitment.
Well, it was before. It was before you could. I mean, presumably they're all on YouTube or somewhere now. Whereas it was before that.
I think Home and Away is on Channel 5, so yeah, it'd be like one of those catch-up programs.
Or Dave, somewhere where you can probably pay to see it now,
Probably, you probably can, yeah.
which would have been
There's
cheaper
probably
than
somewhere
it
where you
paying
could
all
go
the
back to the very
postage.
beginning if you really wanted to, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's really sad, isn't it, when you think about it? There's probably an archive out there of every episode of Home and Away, but we haven't got one of like all the vegan stuff.
Shut up, lettuce pants. Now you shouldn't be looking.
Shut up, lettuce
Yeah,
pants.
don't
Fair enough.
don't be looking at my pants.
That's a new one.
Another
There was,
another good one.
there was a comment that I spotted that I was going to address. Respect. Vegans actively target people who choose to eat meat, more like targeted harassment. I mean, I'm not 100% sure whether you're just referring to some specific examples of activism there or what, but
Well, we might be back to DXE and the.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, unless you're speaking about certain examples or you've seen a video on here or something, I mean, that's not the collective, that's not necessarily the norm.
No, I mean, like if you think about the type of stuff that goes on, generally speaking, even think like the cubes and the diamonds, or what is it? We the Free have got diamond shaped, haven't they? But or Earthlings, which was the first one. I mean, they don't actually seek out flesh consumers. If anything, they are approached by them,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they
I mean,
make
that's
themselves
normally
available.
the way, isn't it? I mean, they will kind of stand there very still in their place, especially if it's a cube of truth or something like that. They don't come to you. And quite often, especially if it is somewhere like a cube of truth, then it's normally a consistent place, the same place at the same time, repeatedly every week or whatever. And yeah, they'll stand in their squares or whatever. And the only people that may approach anyone will be the few people that are handing out leaflets.
Well, I suppose it's the restaurant one where perhaps
Of course, but
you know,
but we're talking about really isolated examples here.
well, certainly in this country or both our countries, because that really took off mainly in the States, I think, didn't it?
Mm,
Yeah. So
yeah. But even there, though, we're still talking about in terms of outreach, in terms of activism, in terms of what happens on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We're still talking about minority cases that just get extra attention because they don't make us look good. But the problem is, a lot of the time, it's us vegans that are sharing that stuff to get it to go viral in the first place because we're quite happy with the action, which gets the negative feedback afterwards. I mean, that's exactly what happened with that guy in Australia, right?
yes, that's right. That was a peculiar little story in the end, wasn't
Because
it?
all the initial firestorm, all the initial publicity, all the initial whatever, that all came from vegans before national media jumped on it.
I mean, I think that guy might have just been pretty clever at getting himself
I
some
certainly
publicity.
think that he discovered very early on that there was something in this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why did the vegan cross the road? Probably to stop oppression.
So go and get a leaflet from someone.
Yeah, if it was Ronnie, it would be to post a leaflet with a spoon.
Yeah, which as a sentence sounds really weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah, Jim said something about the word flesh, which doesn't. I think that corresponds with how the flesh industry sees it. I think he's saying flesh is on the carcass before. Presumably, I think suggesting once the flesh is cut off the carcass, it becomes meat. But that doesn't chime with the dictionary definition, because even if you just cut a piece of flesh from a carcass, it's still called flesh.
Yeah.
I,
I'm
I
not, I'm
think
not,
I
I'm
think
not
that
100% sure about that. I mean, obviously, from the original definition of meat, which was like meat, that was just sustenance, that was just food. But what I always look at, which I find really interesting, is the German word for meat, which is Fleisch or flesh.
yeah, fleisch. That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's their word for meat. So I don't know. Is the answer.
Yes. Oh. You see, you can also have a fleshy plant used as food.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about that kind of stuff, don't they? The
Yeah,
flesh.
especially aubergines and those kind of
Yeah,
plants.
isn't it the flesh of a coconut as well?
Yeah, and also the milk of a
Yeah,
coconut.
and obviously the milk of a coconut. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I know those words do exist to describe other things.
Well, when you've got coconut flesh, coconut milk, and coconut water, what separates out the milk from the water, or is that the same thing?
I'm not 100% sure on that one, to be perfectly honest.
No, no.
Because the if you went to like well, they probably don't have them anymore, but the old fashioned fair with like a coconut stall, and you won a coconut. What when you crack that yourself at home, is that coconut water or is that coconut milk?
Yeah, I think it could be either, depending on the way you describe it.
Right.
Somebody who's 15 wants to join. Is that too? That's too young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry about that. Milk is white. Okay.
Usually, some of the plant based milks have got more like a yellowy tinge, haven't they? They're more like a creamy coloured.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Now we've answered that. Yeah. Apparently you can't join, and because you're only 15. You said.
Yeah, it can get my live taken down because you're under 18 and you've already told the chat that you're under 18. So it just, I apologise. If this was like one of our daytime lives, then that's a bit different. But when we do the nighttime ones, the content matter is mature. So
Is it still the rule that you're supposed to be over 12 to even join?
13, I think.
13. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might even be 14, but it's not 12. Yeah. It's either 13 or 14.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of people much younger than that on this
Oh,
platform.
yeah, absolutely.
But then again, when I was a kid, because my mum used to work in a cinema, I used to sneak into all the X-rated films and stuff.
Now, I mean, I used to do exactly the same thing. I'm going back a number of years when we used to have video shops. I used to go to our local video shop, which was a place called Oscar's Video Shop, and I'd get like a wrestling one, like a WWF one, and underneath I would get like, I don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street, and the person at the counter would be just some teenager chewing gum or whatever, and they just scan them. You'd show your card, give them the £2, £2. That's what it used to be, £2 for 2 videos for a week. And yeah, they wouldn't even care. I'd be like at 12 and hiring these 18 films, and they wouldn't even look at you. But yeah, as long as you didn't have it on the top and you had it second, you'd get away with anything.
All right, very good. Don't other animals eat meat? A lot of them don't. No, herbivores.
No, huge amount don't, in fairness. If we think about how many herbivores, just cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, let alone the free living beings.
Yeah, somebody claimed there were more carnivores than herbivores once, and I was thinking, well, how does that work?
Absolutely not, no. I mean, just without even really thinking about it, just kind of by definitions of those words alone, if that was the case, then the carnivores would starve to death. Because there has to be enough food supply for all of them. And if they outnumber the food supply, then they're not going to last. It's kind of how evolution works. I mean, the big reason that we haven't got huge megafauna, as much as people like to claim sometimes that like a few men with sticks wiped them out, which is pretty funny, it's because they physically couldn't consume enough food to sustain life. It's the same with like Megalodon, the shark. They just physically couldn't consume food often enough to sustain the size of them.
There's another child just shouting meat at us all the time, which must be past your bedtime, surely.
Unless they're in the States, I suppose. But yeah, you'd think so, especially on a Sunday. Bath and hair wash, early night, school tomorrow.
Bath and hair wash.
Yeah, wolves, tigers and lions do eat meat, but they don't have any moral agency.
And they're also
They don't drive cars or vote or shop.
Well, actually, it's interesting. A wolf would be an omnivore, wouldn't they? whereas the tigers and lions would be obligate carnivores. Yeah. So if you're going to give a vegan leaflet to any of those three, it'd be a wolf then. Try the wolf. An animal's sole purpose is to be eaten. No.
No, absolutely not. I mean, by that description alone, that would include you. By definition, you are an animal. You are a mammal. You are an ape. So if you only exist to be food, it's not a great way to describe us.
Mm.
At least you can read the chat tonight. The last few days, it's been too fast.
Mm. Well, there's an interesting observation. I don't believe anyone is an obligate carnivore when humans can intervene. So that does raise an interesting philosophical issue about should we intervene and how. But then if you're talking about, I don't know, we're going to have a CCTV camera in every kind of rabbit hole, or there must be some obligate carnivores that do burrow in the earth and that kind of stuff. So it'd be actually very difficult to intervene.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I wish I still had the video, but it was on my original TikTok account, which got banned, I don't know, about 2 years ago now. But I had a series of videos that I'd filmed about a heron at local pond, discussing exactly potentially this issue, in the sense that should I interfere because the heron is literally going to take one of those ducklings, or do I do nothing because I don't know when the last time the heron ate was? So my decision and the cause and effects of that, yeah, I obviously want to instinctively save the ducklings, but at the same time, I could be costing the heron their life, or the heron may be taking whatever back to their own nest and their own babies. I don't have this information. I don't have the context. I don't have the full picture. So my decision might be from a place of compassion and care and respect, but I might be doing completely the wrong thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people, in fact, one thing that all kind of wildlife services and stuff so-called talk about is if there's a free living other being in distress, they often will say, just leave them alone.
Yeah.
In thinking that their mothers might return or something else. But, the idea that we can intervene and know kind of what we're doing on the basis of what you've just said is very limited, because you come across and you have to interpret the scene in front of you and you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, exactly that. Unless it is, as you say, you've got some CCTV and you've watched everything unfold for a number of months, and you sit there and you make a decision like that, which obviously you can only do one situation per time. Then yeah, it's very difficult. You're making a decision based on emotion, and you don't know whether that's the right thing. It might be the right thing by one, but it could be catastrophic for the other.
Yeah, I interviewed this negative utilitarian called David Pearce once, and he said that humans need to use their godlike power to micromanage every square meter of the world. That's how he put it. And I was thinking, we don't have a great track record at doing that type of thing.
No, we don't. There's a question here to answer as well in a minute, from Yes. You are hypocrites. You consume unethical products. Who are you to draw the line?
Yeah, and I think they've also said vegans are hypocrites. Why don't you care about the destroyed habitats when you eat plants? Well, there's quite an interesting stuff there. I mean, the thing is, going straight to the habitats thing, veganism would actually reforest habitats or re-establish habitats.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge amounts of land would be saved if everyone was on a plant-based diet, if everyone went vegan. Then the amount of land that we currently consume could be reduced by as much as 3/4. We could save, in a sense, a land mass the size of Africa, the continent, around the world, if we all switched.
Yeah, I posted a video by George Monbiot which touches on this, because I suppose really to be fair, Andy, that if you say, well, we want everybody to start eating plants, people then think, oh, so therefore more plants will be needed to be
Of
grown.
course, I understand where the kind of logic comes from, or assumed logic comes from. Absolutely, yeah, because you think that you don't think about the plants that you're eating is essentially how it works, and you don't think about the plants that are being consumed by the other animals that you're also eating. That's where the maths fails. But yeah, you can definitely understand why they would make that assumption. But I mean, yeah, so we could save if everyone switched sort of like we had a click of the fingers and everyone went vegan overnight. So not only could we save like 3/4 of the land that we currently use, but also if we continued and pushed that even more forward and started looking at other alternative ways that weren't just agriculture, they weren't just farming the way that we currently farm, and we started doing things like vertically farming, and we started doing other things, fermentation, all these other things that reduced that need even more, then that land could be reduced even further. And the amount of land that could return to the wild for habitation and for other species to finally thrive in peace would be absolutely enormous. Well, obviously, we'd still have the animals to look after, Jim, but I'm talking like theoretically.
Did I imagine that, or did I see the word Tyrannosaurus Rex? I might have been imagining that, I think. Getting too old for this.
No, I saw someone keep going on about McDonald's. You should work for them if you're that, supportive.
Indeed.
They pay an absolute fortune in advertising every year, so
And wages. They're well known for really good wages.
yeah.
Not. Do they still got a situation where they won't let people unionize?
I think so, yeah. I know they still take advantage of, I don't know about like worldwide, but certainly in the
We
US,
have a
they still take the
I
piss out
don't
of
know if you
children.
guys can hear me. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's not showing the blue on the thing, so yeah, there was a problem with like our union, like our federal unions, there was like a backlog, and there was nothing being done to fight that backlog of union requests. So that was an issue. But now with everything with the UAW and Starbucks and even like Las Vegas food providers and stuff, it's been a little bit different. I guess the administration has been like, maybe they have a little bit more of a fire under their posterior to do things. But yeah, there used to be a huge backlog, and it wasn't viable for people to ask for unionization in things like small scale things, and where people obviously have more power than you and your.
Yeah, I was thinking more in terms of the McDonald's used to refuse it rather than it was just a backlog.
Well, it's a law. You can't do that. Yeah, that's not legal. If there's a it's all in these clauses. I've looked into it as a staunch leftist trying to fucking organize my grocery store. If you were able to just even get, I think it's about, 35% of the non-managerial workers to agree to voting to becoming in union, then you have the right to do that. So it's all about people's ability to educate themselves on how to create unions and stuff like that. But there was a weird backlog because of administration things where it just wasn't like a weird, I guess a lull in ability to unionize. Not that people care about it anyways. I'll be right back.
All right. Hey, Penelope, you're right.
There's actually a Wikipedia page called McDonald's and Unions.
Oh, never mind.
We lost somebody.
Yeah, we got another guest request, so I'll just bring them straight on whilst it's quiet. Oh, it's taking so long. There we go. Hi and welcome. Hello.
Hi, Reggie.
Hmm?
Uh-oh.
Mm.
Do you have a question or anything you want to say, or?
It's not Reggie Cray, is it?
No.
Oh, good.
How do vegans actually eat what they eat without like having the fertilizer that the animals use for it, that farmers use for it? Sorry.
So, what are you saying? How does food come from without animal-based fertilizer?
Yeah, because it would more or less just be like, don't know how to explain it, but I'll give you another question. So, do you know how you get vegan meat?
Yeah.
How does that get like? How do you get it?
Well, if I wanted it, I'd go to the supermarket and buy it.
You mean how do you manufacture it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the actual kind of if I had to kind of describe the process, which would get something like an Aldi vegan burger to the freezer, I wouldn't know I wouldn't know where it was, to be honest. But then again, most people can't
Well, I
describe
mean,
the.
I was going to say I couldn't tell you the same thing about quite a lot of stuff.
I don't know how these phones work or the internet.
I mean, absolutely, yeah.
How do magnets work?
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation the other day. I can't remember when it was now. When I talk about my car, I'm like, look, I know when I put my key in and turn the ignition, it comes on and it drives where I want to go. How that process actually works in terms of engineering, I don't know.
I think it comes on is a little bit of a limited way of talking about an
But
internal
you know what I
combustion
mean? I
engine
know
there,
what the
Andy.
lights mean. I know how to drive. I've passed
Oh,
my
look, it
tests. But
comes
in
on.
terms of the general engineering practice, no idea. Couldn't tell you.
Right, remind me not to sit in your passenger seat.
Yeah, like I really don't. It's just something I've got no interest in. I've never been like interested or passionate about cars. And yeah, other than the bare basics that I needed to know to pass my test and to be able to drive, everything else I'm not sure about. I don't know how it works. But,
But going
like
back to,
I know what a carburetor is in terms of that it exists, what its purpose is.
are we getting
Don't know.
technical now?
Yeah,
Carburetor.
that's what I'm saying. I know it's a word.
Well, going back to what Reggie said, to take that seriously, processed food can be a problem wherever it is, in whatever shape. And so quite a lot of vegans don't use any kind of processed food. They tend to like to eat from scratch. Their staple will be fruits and veg and rice and everything other than processed food. You know, there are some vegans who won't touch it with a barge
Yeah,
pole.
I mean, one of the
Can
things
I
we haven't touched on in our lives, really, but there are obviously a percentage of them are raw vegans that literally don't touch anything like that ever.
can
Mm.
I can I do a little just like so saying process is a weird thing because everything is processed.
Hmm.
You can't like
Yeah,
as
that's
a like broccoli, things like that are all processed through GMOs, and GMO not being like gene introducing from animals, GMO just from natural like cross pollination. That's a genetically modified organism, and that's a process, right? So when I hear people demonize processed foods, we think of processed foods as like fast food,
yeah,
McDonald's,
yeah.
spam, canned meat. We
Spam, spam, spam,
those things
spam,
like
spam, spam.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not
like
sure how old you are, Reggie, so I'm going to touch on this pretty delicately, but do you know how non-vegan foods are made?
Yes.
So, I mean, the one thing that I would say that I definitely know about plant-based food is there's no rights violations, which is the key difference.
Right.
So for us, it's like I don't need to know the intricacies of how one gets to the other, but I'm quite confident that the rights violations which I oppose about a flesh-based product or an animal-based product or any other kind of exploitation, I know that they're avoided.
Right.
Another
And that,
thing that would change the processing is when they invented mechanically recovered meat, as it was called, which meant that they use high-powered machinery to blast. Like when I was a kid, you'd go down to the butcher's and you'd get a bone for the dog,
Yeah.
and it would have lots of kind of the white kind of gristly type stuff still attached, right? And so that's all blasted off the bone now. And because I know McDonald's got into trouble probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, maybe because they used to produce something which ended up being called pink slime, which was like a meat slurry, it was called,
yeah.
which doesn't sound too nice.
No, I've seen some of the videos of the old chicken nuggets being made, yeah. And it's just blobs of pink covered in batter, basically. Look, it looks more like the consistency of flubber.
It's essentially spam.
Yeah, pretty much, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I bet if we went into any factory producing food of any type, you probably would think, blimey.
Yeah, you would. If you saw the process from a different point of view, yeah, you'd have a very different view of it, of course. You quite often get people that work in certain restaurants that no longer choose to eat from those restaurants purely because they've seen the kitchens.
Yeah, well, I've got first-hand evidence of that. Yeah, my regional manager, when I was a projectionist, used to have a restaurant, and he used to delight in telling everybody the tricks of the trade, just to see if they can hold their stomach in, because things that are got up to in a restaurant situation make your toes curl.
I'm just reading the chat. I don't think like there's any questions really. The chat's just chatting among themselves.
Even a dragon. Yeah, wasn't Pete the Dragon? Remember that Disney film from years ago?
Yeah, okay. I don't think I've seen it, but I know which film you're talking about.
Yeah.
Pete the Magic Dragon.
Used to make everybody cry, that, didn't it? Yeah, kind of little Jackie Paper.
Flies by the sea.
That's
No, that's not what I was thinking of. Maybe it's not the one that I was thinking of. Maybe I'm thinking of a different dragon.
no,
film
that's a different one. That's a song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called Puff the Magic Dragon.
Oh, there. Yeah, my bad. Oops. Oopies.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to say that doesn't sound very Disney.
Pete the Magic Dragon, I think, is that one. He's like a big chubby dragon, and
Is
he's
that
got
the
like
big
a
red
chair.
dragon and like the front cover's like a child sat
Yeah.
next to him? Okay, right.
Yeah, it looks very 80s. And
Yeah. I do know which film it is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of those at the time. Remember Digby, the biggest dog in the world. All kind of programs like that.
Yeah.
Spike Milligan was in that. It was really funny.
Yeah. The TV for kids especially has changed hugely, like massively. They don't make programs like they used to make programs. It's all just flashing lights and weirdness now.
All right, Grandad, settle down.
But it is though, like when I used to watch kids' TV programs, there were actually programs that had like stories. It's just like game shows and flashing lights, like I said, and
Yeah, but Andy, if you were popping for bar saying all this now, people would be rolling their eyes.
True, but it is the case. Yeah, it's not like it was when I was younger. You had Super Ted and stuff like that. These were classics. You know, one of my favourite programs when I was a kid was a one called Will Quack Quack, which was like a Welsh cartoon series. That was quality.
Called what?
Will Quack Quack.
Are you saying quack quack as in duck?
Yeah, they were like a family of ducks that had other friends of other animals, but they're all Welsh, so all the accents were really Welsh.
I see.
Good.
Well, that's a new one on me, boyo.
Yeah, it must have been like a very either late 80s or early 90s cartoon. It's very dated, but yeah, that used to be one of my favourite things to watch. Will Quack Quack.
Yeah. What was the one with the soup dragon?
Soup Dragon.
Yeah, the cranky. Not crankies. That was that weird couple, wasn't it? The crankies, but they were like little puppet characters that used to just talk with whistles, you know. So it's like
Yeah.
Swanee whistle type things.
I'm not sure.
Oh, blimey.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
The wooden pots.
Might be before my time.
So I was raised in Europe as a military brat, and and we didn't have access to American, like we had some, but it was before the time where you could just like send it immediately. So like we would get movies, like 6 months later, stuff like that. But do you in the UK have a cartoon called The Fruities?
Fruities. Don't
Yeah,
think
it's
it
like
rings
a
a bell.
really old cartoon. It's kind of like the Moomins. I don't know if that's familiar too,
Yeah, I
but
know the Moomins, but the Fruities.
yeah.
Oh,
I know neither, I'm afraid.
the Moomins, I remember. Yeah, that was around the same sort of time as the
Interesting.
Poddington Peas.
It was the clangers I was thinking of.
Because everything,
Oh,
it
okay.
was so interesting. Like on Cartoon Network for us, we would get the British English versions of things. So it would be totally like an American voice, but then Wilma would be like Wilmer, and Velma would be like Velmer, and we were like, "What is what is happening right now?"
As in the
So I
Flint.
didn't.
Somebody's asking, are vapes vegan? I don't know that. Did anybody know that? I don't know that. I
I
mean,
mean, I don't know
I
it.
would probably guess,
well, they'll be through the
that-
labs, won't they?
yeah, in the same way that anything that you consume in that way has been tested at some point. Yeah, in that way.
Well, the
I
real
can't see.
question,
I mean, actually, to be fair, considering how popular vapes are, I'm sure if that is the case, which I would assume it was, there would be like vegan brands.
yeah, okay. I mean, the next question about that really is the usual kind of problem with these products is that not only do they go through the vivisection laboratories initially, but some of them, whenever there's a new batch, they have to do it again, which is one of the main problems about vaccines, right? But I mean, vapes might be the same as that, but I don't know because I don't even know to what extent they were tested, right from the off. But I would assume just because it's a legal requirement that they were.
Yeah, exactly. I can't see how they would avoid that. To be fair, it would just be like standard legal practice, wouldn't it? They wouldn't have got a license to sell without them being tested.
Yeah, well, of course, vivisection is an interesting thing, isn't it? About, I mean, like when I came into the movement, the big thing was scientific anti-vivisection. And do you remember a name called Hans Reusch, Andy?
That's nice. No, I don't think that rings a
Oh,
bell.
right, okay. Yeah, so he had this pretty famous book called Slaughter the Innocent. I think it came out in 1979. And it was the first book I read. I thought it was the first animal rights book I'd ever read, but it turns out he wasn't a supporter of animal rights. He's actually opposed to it.
Right.
His argument was that human beings are selfish, and so therefore you have to make scientific arguments and tell them that if they support vivisection, they were supporting, kind of a situation which is going to damage their own health and the health of their children. No morals thing. He said that humans don't respond to moral arguments because they're too selfish.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there is some truth in that, but
Yeah. And so,
it is strange though, because I mean, literally, what you're saying is kind of the same thing that Bridget Brophy was talking about even earlier than that, and like, yeah, it's supposed to have been this science against vivisection forever, and nothing's really changed.
yeah, well, one of the earliest books I got on vivisection is by George Bernard Shaw, just called Shaw on Vivisection. That goes back a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's always been two sides to it: the moral argument against it and the scientific argument. And of course, there's an interesting kind of equation between the two, because scientists will say that we can research on other animals because they're not like us. And then when you say, okay, so what makes the results relevant and valid? Oh, because they're like us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of have it covered, kind of both ways, really.
But yeah, I mean that's the important thing, isn't it? When you look at it, there's the two arguments against it, i.e., the moral one or the scientific one, and the argument that's for it is it brings money in. That's the argument for it. There ain't anything else.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I had this book called "Suffer the Children," which wasn't an animal rights book. It was by the Sunday Times Insight team, which was a very kind of famous kind of investigative journalist setup for the Sunday Times, and this was an investigation of thalidomide, and thalidomide was a real kind of test case in all of this. For example, it was tested, I think, initially in Germany, found to cause these. It's called pterogenetic, creating a monster type thing. It's a very unkind way of talking about the fact that children were born without arms and legs and that kind of stuff. It's called pterogenetic, and but then they wanted to sell this thing all over the world, and so they kind of hid the results, and they just repeated the problem over and over again all over the world, and it ended up being a massive kind of pharmaceutical scandal. And there was a lot of court cases then, and I think that the English Minister of Health, who might have been Enoch Powell at the time, he was going to be sued as an individual, and so he came up with the idea of more vivisection. In other words, vivisection became a legal thing rather than a scientific thing.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting. I mean, and in fact, while she's in the chat, actually, Kerry was making the point earlier about the time and money that goes into looking after her animals, which supposedly justifies exploiting them. Well, if you want to look at something like vivisection, times that money by 10, changes nothing. The money that goes into the investment of breeding and looking after animals for scientific purposes is absolutely enormous, and yet it doesn't change anything about the exploitation that exists.
Yeah, and I think another thing is people are very blind to where their taxes go. So like
Absolutely,
yeah. So like how much, like people see like because they're looking at like the flashy processed quote goods of veganism, like Burger King having an all vegan restaurant in the UK and stuff like that, and the cost of that, and then looking at like they go to the grocery store next to that, and then the burger is like a fraction of the price, and not understanding that government subsidies pay for that, just like the healthcare and the NHS in the UK.
Would it also be true to say that if you try to find out where your taxes went, you'd have a difficulty, because it's not as though governments are very transparent about it, is it?
I don't reckon.
No, but there are governments that do have itemized taxation. Like I don't know the specifics, but I know they exist. But I also know that there's statistical evidence to show that if the IRS in at least the United States would be more apt to do monthly taxes, like do like a tax return on a monthly basis, or whatever, that it would save more people money. But
Yeah, but that's a different
there's
thing,
like,
surely,
that's like,
to
you
show
know,
the citizen where their taxes are being paid. That's a different thing, surely.
yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even if you just think about something like the COVID vaccine, you know, that was for pretty much everyone, taxpayers' money that obviously was tested on animals. Some of them even contained animals. So like, yeah, absolutely. You kind of can't avoid some of these things in some aspects. It's just impossible to. Even in your own personal choices, you can do things, but objectively, yeah, you can't control what the government do. In the same way that like tax money is spent on bombs that blow women and children to bits. It's not
yeah,
my choice, but that's, you know, that's a contribution of tax money, yeah.
yep, for sure. I think there's just, especially, I don't know, because my formative years weren't in other places that might be slightly more progressive at the same time while not being, like capitalism, but have the NHS, or like Finland that has the best education and prisons in the world, but still use slave labor, things like that. So, like, I always look at it like
Interesting
people,
dualism, though, isn't it? Education and
yeah,
prisons.
yeah, like, like something that always like stuck with me was that, being raised the way I was told I was stupid for not doing my homework and shit like that. But if I had a class that didn't have homework, I would ace it, but after school, I would decide, that's me time. For whatever reason, I just didn't feel an obligation to do homework. But
I'm
then you
100%
see
with
this
you there.
documentary that's like, oh, the number one educated country in the world is Finland, and they don't do homework. You're like, all the people like that are abused that way. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't even know.
It's a silly concept, homework, isn't it? You know,
Yeah, like, it's
Well,
just like if
the
your
other
boss
interesting
called
thing
you
about
right
it
now and was
is,
like, "Hey, I need you to go do this," I'd be like, "You
at
need to get
least at school, if you want, you're struggling or whatever, you've got the option of asking for help. But the problem is, so many like households have got so many whatever's going on, whether it's because their parents are busy with work, because they're in an abusive family, because their parents don't feel smart enough to help them. There's 100 different reasons why it just doesn't work either. So no, I'm totally with you there. I think school should start when the bell rings, and you should give kids that time to sort of like, this is me now. I can go and do what I want to do for the rest of the
yeah, they
evening
don't give
without that stress.
mechanics a bit of an engine to take home, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. Same with the weekend. It should be your time. You shouldn't be going, oh shit,
yeah."
I've got to do this.
And then even then, like, I look at sorry not to cut you off. Did you have something else?
No, no, no,
Sorry.
no, no. I mean, to be fair, obviously, I'm not going to go back in time. But if I could go back in time to go back to school, I would rather do, obviously not a detention, but I'd rather stay after school 30 minutes longer, do whatever that homework was, and then they ring the bell. So when I leave school, it's
Exactly.
done.
Yep. Exactly. And then you look at like interesting countries like Japan, where they have such an interesting take on school, where it's just like super integral, and like it's normal to do like remedial classes and stuff like that. And but they also have these robust like extracurricular activities. You know what I mean? Like, while they are definitely not a model I would, base my country on, they also have like this ability to like be a part of like their community and stuff, where I feel like the Western world is very getting away from community and going into hyper individualism. And I think that's very important to understand that, we're not here as a monolith. No man is an island. And really understanding that point is like, I don't even talk to my parents because of that, because they want to be the whole pick yourself up by the bootstraps, which is a logical fallacy. It's not even a possibility. They think that, like, Elon Musk made it by himself and not government subsidies and exploiting labor. You know what I mean? Like, and when you try to point it out to them, they don't even entertain the idea. You know what I mean? And that's what scares me. Like, I want to be able to make that bridge. I want to be able to be like, hey, like, I'm your, like, somebody who cares about you. Do you think I'm trying to be malicious here? And, like, like, if I'm stupid, call me out and I'll gladly be like, oh shit, I didn't know this, pardon my language. But, like, it's not the
No,
same.
honestly, what you've just said, I absolutely completely agree with, and like that, this is kind of the roadblock I have with like my parents, for example, who won't discuss veganism with me. I'm like, do you think that I'm doing this because I'm trying to ruin your life or something? Like, what is it, that bias? What do you think I'm doing this for? I'm doing this because not only am I trying to make the world a better place, but it's better for you guys too. Like, and I think sometimes we sort of have to acknowledge it takes quite a lot of courage and bravery to bring up these subjects as well, especially with like friends and family and people close to us. So when we're doing that, we're doing it from a point of respect and care and love. We're doing it because we want them to be better as well as we want better for the other animals.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's
I
not
don't think that's
received
what
that
this.
way, Andy, is it?
No,
Yeah.
it never is. It's always seen as like a criticism, isn't it? As opposed to like, I'm doing this because I care about you. But yet, if these people just, for example, went to their GP and the GP said, you need to stop doing this, and this to extend your life, most people would just do it. And like, they're not doing it from a point of empathy. They're doing it from a professional point, but yet they've got the authority. And yet, like, yeah, it does frustrate me sometimes. Because I mean, I've even been a bit sort of pedantic with it sometimes when my dad's asked for some computer help, and I'm like, oh, you want my opinion now, right? My opinion's valid now. All of a sudden, is it? It's not triggering you that I know more about computers than you. Like, it's just silly. Why won't you listen to me about these other things? Why won't you even entertain
Well,
a
yeah, but the
conversation?
thing is, kind of, it's almost like a cliche that younger people know more about computers than older people.
Yeah, true,
When it
but
comes to morality,
that's
it,
that's the
it,
that's the stumbling block with my dad. Yes, he
yeah,
can't bear the idea of me knowing more, or not even
yeah,
knowing
that's
more,
right,
but
yeah.
having a different understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always a problem in these kind of. I mean, this is sociology. I mean, it's if normally moral lessons are usually transmitted from the elder to the younger, in veganism it'll be the other way around, often as not,
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
causes all kinds of resentments.
Yeah, I can give you a perfect
Hmm.
example of this, right? So in January, less than a month's time, it would be 10 years for me being vegan, and I was vegetarian for just shy of 2 years before that. When I made my documentary I'm talking about the director's cut now, so like May of this year, and my mum and dad watched it. My dad afterwards gone, do you know what? I didn't know that veganism wasn't a diet, and I'm like, you're fucking joking, right? Like, that's exactly my point. Like all these years that I've been saying stuff, you ain't been listening because it's me.
And I'm not sure your guys's because while I've heard you guys talk a lot, I don't know your your journey. So like that's exactly what happened to me. Like people would talk about it and I'd be like, well, humans' rights, right? Like you see them as lesser and you decide that, oh, okay, well, as long as I'm being a quote good human, like what's the issue, right? But whenever I get into like even like I see like a vegan who's like maybe not there yet, is like anytime you have a quandary about how you're doing this or why you're doing this, is you always put yourself in that individual's and you put yourself in that individual's space. You look at it from how you would engage it from there. How would you want me to advocate for you if you were the pig in the truck headed to the abattoir? Would you want me to like do freaking YouTube videos about food and the new like vegan like Expo 2025? Or would you want me to get out there and be kicking ass? Like, not like, you know, in a very, it, it's just, even in that mindset, it's like, and not everybody is able to do these things too. So I come from it in that way too. Like, we all have abilities from privilege, You know, maybe some of us had more money, maybe some of us are abled or, like disabled, have more skills, so like these are things we communicate as a community, we figure it out, but I'm telling you, if I'm that pig in that truck and you are not, if you're not jumping in that guy's like seat to get, the control of the truck, I don't know what's happening. And we also have to think about the world we live in and other stuff too, but that's, totally a hypothetical, right? From the animal's
Yeah,
perspective. It's not even
absolutely. Yeah,
realistic.
yeah. And
But,
that is
I'm
kind
just
of the way
saying,
you think
like,
about it, isn't it? If you put yourself in the victim's position, it's very hard to not see anything but emotion and anger. Like, you that's what you want. There's no organizing events and that sort of stuff. You should be like, chopping down, flipping doors and breaking these places open. Like, yeah, from the victim's point of view, that's what you'd want if you were in that situation. It's not very reassuring knowing that people are stood in the street with placards if you're in a tiny cage somewhere, but that's what we have to do.
and then you see things like the climate movement, but none of them are vegan. It's like we want to laugh about it, but
Well,
it's
some of
it's
them are, I
wild.
think, is the correct thing to say there. I mean, like, I think quite a few are now, I think.
I think they make like they make the connection because they are passionate, but
I think for them, they might make the connection to vegetarianism rather than veganism.
oh yeah, for sure
Mm.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, even me, I would think, and it's like interesting too because if you go to like East Asian countries, anything that's labeled vegetarian is vegan. So, like, I haven't done this, but I would like to find out at what point did Western society decide that vegetarianism was eggs, cheese, and sometimes allowing fish. And even plant based, the term is sometimes conflated with like pescatarian and stuff.
Yeah,
So, like,
absolutely. That was one thing that I noticed a lot on the Facebook groups that were like plant-based. There'd be people posting up stuff that was like an egg in the middle, and everyone would go, "Oh, it's fantastic."
you're
And
like,
it's like,
wait, hold
what
on.
group is this that I'm in? But yeah, I mean, plant-based has turned into mostly plant-based as opposed to specific. Yeah, it really has.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, I suppose when you look at it from a language point of view, the fact that it's plant-based doesn't necessarily mean plant-specific. It means plant-based. So the
Yeah, I could
majority
say I
of
was a vegan because I eat cows that eat grass.
so like
you know?
yeah, I mean,
Some people
I
have tried
suppose
them.
we shouldn't assume with the plant-based thing, which we do quite a lot. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's language
it's
level.
like
It,
I'm
it doesn't
reclaiming
mean
it.
plant-specific. Any
Oh,
farms want to give me their snap? I'm not sure that there'll be
Yeah.
a whole bunch of
Yeah.
farmers in here, but maybe.
They're
I got some news for you, Andy.
All right.
This is from the Guardian, today's Guardian. It's a review of the new Chicken Run sequel, which I didn't even know. But it
What,
says,
there's a chicken run too?
yeah,
All right. Maybe there.
Chicken Run as well instead of Chicken Run 2.
Oh, chicken run as well. Okay.
No, that was my joke. Never mind.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, Chicken Run's sequel puts factory farming in spotlight. So that's part of the title. The first part of it is a vegan morality tale, question mark. So straight off, you've got this conflation between veganism and factory
Veganism
farming.
being against factory farming, yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes down to people talking about it. It's really pushing the needle, says Matthew Glover, founder of Veganuary and meat alternative range chicken. I've never seen a cartoon like this. And then they've got a quote from the CEO of the UK Vegetarian Society. So it kind of gets more and more confusing.
Good, great, yeah. I mean,
From
hang
a,
on a minute. Obviously, I don't know what's in the second one. If it's factory farm oriented, then there'll probably be a lot more victims, so to speak, and everything
it
else.
seems to be like a Matrix type thing.
Okay, but you've watched the first film, right?
Yes,
Well, I think that tells a better vegan story because these are essentially free range
that's right.
chickens.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So the number one might be more of a vegan thing
I
than
would
the
say
rest.
so. Yeah.
Your great lummox.
I mean, I've not seen any like I said, I didn't even know the second one was even a thing, so I've not seen any pictures or anything. But the first one I thought was great in that sense that these are free range and it depicts, you know, the life actually. They're all chatty, they've got their own thing, all that sort of stuff isn't too bad. But they still want freedom. They still yearn for freedom because they know what's coming eventually.
Yeah, that's right. It says here in Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget is the subtitle.
Dawn of the Nugget, is that really what it's called?
Yeah, Dawn of the Nugget. Yeah. Uh, in cinemas on Friday, thousands of hens must be rescued from a nugget factory where they are kept in a state of stupefied joy by remote control lobotomizing collars. So that this is very kind of Matrix-like, isn't it?
Why didn't they just do it as reality?
Can't
Because
sell
that's
that
going
to
to be
kids,
disconnecting
man.
for people.
I want to, but
and then they make the point about they do mention Babe,
Okay.
and because I remember vegans making a big fuss about Babe, but I do remember them making a big fuss also about the first Chicken Run,
Yeah,
saying that
I mean, I do think the Chicken Run first one has got a good story to it in that sense.
yeah, I do remember when I used to teach the sociology of humor. When Chicken Run was shown in the United States, they had to give out a glossary of terms because the North Americans didn't understand things like "you great lummox" and this kind of stuff, right?
What? So did everyone in the cinema get given like a piece of paper before they
Yeah,
went in?
yeah, give them a piece of paper, yeah, on the way in. But I was thinking it's quite interesting because like we had to learn Americanisms by just working it out, you know, like what a sidewalk was and
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't get that. I mean,
yeah.
even if
I
we went in to
think
watch
I
like a French
watched
film or
Chicken Run in the
or
theater
something.
and worked there at that time. I don't remember that being a thing, but I can understand it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was obviously a selected thing. They wouldn't have produced millions of leaflets, I'm sure, you know, but
I'm
Like,
surprised that they didn't just like reshoot those particular lines. That's what they usually do in these films.
and just my
I don't
anecdotal,
know. I honestly don't know if this claim is particularly true, but just think of like the first Harry Potter film. I mean, the title of the book and the title of the film in the UK is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but in America it's the Sorcerer's Stone because apparently they didn't know what a philosopher was.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know whether that's just like a mean claim, whether there's any truth in that, but the name was definitely different, and they even reshot the bits where they're talking about it, so they filmed them twice.
yeah, my own anecdotal experience though, and now that I'm thinking about it, it probably was because I was being raised in Germany. So like we were shown like when you would have like a day where you would watch like
So
TV or
we've
like
got
a
a
movie or
definite.
something instead of like doing a whatever education thing, we would watch things like Wallace and Gromit and Mr. Bean. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like that's for me is totally absurd. Like
That was pretty much my childhood as well. Well, it's about sort of like going up a little bit, but yeah, Wallace and
yeah,
Gromit.
Mr. Bean doesn't even talk.
Never says a word. It's just
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
If
sure.
that's okay.
Sorry.
So obviously I know when it comes to like veganism, because we have family members that are vegan. If yous had chickens, just for example, and there's no harm done, and they live a very happy, good life, they produce eggs as they would yous ever consider eating eggs if you felt it was like a cruelty-free farm? Again, the chickens aren't actually experiencing anything untoward or bad. It's just something that happens, and then you use the eggs. Like, is that something you would consider, or is that still
can
not okay?
No,
can I
I
take
mean,
this from just like just a pure just moralistic value, right? These chickens exist, they're living their life, you are taking care of them as pets. If you want to explore more, Gaz Oakley is doing this currently. So he wonders the quandary about what to do with the egg production. And he has eggs that aren't bred into like oblivion. So while they're still producing eggs regularly, they're not doing it like factory farm raised chickens, right? So in that experience, what is the example that you as a vegan want to convey to the other world? You can feed those eggs back to those chickens. Chickens eat eggs like crazy. So there's that. Do you maybe know of a food pantry you could give it to? That's totally okay. These animals exist and they produce things that are, in certain respects, edible. And it could go to waste, sure, but the chickens could also eat them, and people who maybe we aren't
Wait,
producing enough
chickens eat their
plants
own
for could eat them
eggs?
too.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely. If you
confused.
smash them on the floor in front of them, they'll gobble them back up. But I
That's
wanted to go
horrible.
back to the way that you
It's
first
I
described
know
I
that
it.
mean,
sounds
I think
bad because
humans have
I
done things with their own fluids that, we would say, you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah, they will
It's
literally consume the entire egg and the shell. But I wanted to go back to what you first said. So the difference from a vegan point of view is we're not an anti-cruelty movement. So it's not just about removing the cruelty and giving excellent treatment. The rights violations in the sense that we don't have the right to violate chickens or take their eggs from them, that would still remain. The fundamental wrong would remain regardless of the conditions. Of course, in terms of a welfare or treatment point of view, it's much better that they're backyard hens than it is that they're in like a hatchery. But from a rights point of view, taking anything from them or expecting anything from them is still a violation.
What
So
if
that
you
would be
found
like
an
the
egg?
vegan stance.
Like, just for example, like I know it sounds a bit of a wild thing, but if you found an egg and it was just going to sit there and it was going to deteriorate and go, I don't know, moldy or whatever the hell would happen if an egg was left. What if it was just, you harvest a random egg that's been left? Is that still not okay? Because that egg would just diminish into mold if it wasn't kind of eaten. Do you get what I mean? Because I know you're saying we don't have the right to take their eggs, which, okay, I can see that point. But if that egg's just randomly chilling there and that chicken's never going to get the egg back, and the
I would treat that the same way as I would treat roadkill, which was I would put them somewhere where a genuine carnivore could have them,
Yeah,
which
I
means
mean,
then that they don't have to go hunting.
the sanctuary that I used to volunteer at, they had a ridiculous amount of chickens at one point, like 50, 60 plus, and they were laying more eggs than they could feed back to the chickens. And what they used to do was put clusters a couple of 100 meters away on the outskirts of all the land, and the foxes used to come and take the eggs, and it would stop them coming anywhere near the chickens. So yeah, you can enjoy
conversations
the wildlife.
before. You know, when it comes to like obviously animals' bodies and things like that, like I do think if the animal has lived a long time and they've passed away naturally and they are healthy and they are safe to eat, then I don't personally see it as bad because it's lived its life, it's died, it's the situation. Just like humans, harvest their organs or you can be an organ donor. And I think why not if it's going to help
Yeah,
another
but
species?
the difference between that is if I died tomorrow, if I don't have an organ card, no one will take my organs, regardless of whether that would save lives, because the organ card is your consent. So
I still think that's such a shame, though, with it, really. I get what you mean, like when you say about the consent, but I don't know. I think they should just take them anyway. But maybe that's my opinion.
I don't necessarily disagree with you when it comes to organs from a human, but I mean, to put it into the same comparison, would I want to be eaten by someone just because I died? Probably not. Even if I had a really good life. Whereas if my organs could keep someone else alive and give them a life, then that's a totally different situation. I mean,
I think the problem is they
if
don't
we were
speak the
talking
same
about,
language,
say,
do
I don't
they?
agree with it, but if we were talking about, say, taking a heart from a pig to save a human, I would still be against it, but that would have far more justification than just eating because we can.
I think animals though, like especially obviously in America and things like that, like you got your animals killing and eating humans, and I don't believe they should be killed because I think at the end of the day, like unfortunately we are prey and that is the way it is. So I know that animals get shot for eating and killing humans, but I think if humans are silly and end up getting killed, in obviously not all aspects, but just saying certain jumping into zoo enclosures and things like that, it's a different thing because you can't get consent from a species that doesn't speak the same language. So to me, I think if a bear eats a human, fair enough. If an animal dies and they're healthy and they can't, live anything,
I
then fair
suppose
enough.
if we
I
went
don't think you should kill
to the
animals,
roadkill example, if
personally.
we went back to the roadkill example, let's just say you were driving along and there was a dead deer on the side of the road that you hadn't hit, and from a rights point of view, I suppose there wouldn't be any violation there if you wanted to consume that animal. I mean, I
Yeah.
personally wouldn't.
But if it's already dead
But if
and it's
you were
safe,
if you were
fair
say
enough.
farming an animal and then they just died of old age and you consumed them, do you still have only farmed them their entire life for the purpose of eating them at the end of it? Okay, I understand
They
that
might
they've had
not
a
have
better
though.
existence than normal, but still, they're essentially property until they're no longer of any use.
Farmers do, like, they're not all just wanting to kill animals. Like, I've seen farmers get incredibly
I don't
distressed.
think
If
that's by any means.
It's still their pets. Like, I get where you come from, because at the end of the day, like, some farming, like, you do get obviously cruelty free farms, but quite clearly that is a very much a minority. There's definitely way more cruelty farms, and I get that. But
Absolutely, but again, to go back to the point, like even in that case, even if we found a farm that was like 10 out of 10 standards, absolutely the best, each chicken's got a DVD player, Sky, heated blanket. If their sole purpose was to lay eggs and then have their throat slit, then no, because the rights violations exist regardless of whether it's a nice farm or a nasty farm. The treatment involved is just kind of like consequential. It doesn't change the moral wrong of the action. In the same
the
way
good
that
question is though, who
like, I'm supposed to put it into human perspectives. Imagine if the Israelis at the moment were putting people in the Ritz before they blew it up. It doesn't change anything about the oppression. It doesn't change anything about the immorality. It just makes the treatment beforehand or during better, which obviously is great, but it doesn't change the fundamental wrong.
but it's a mad thing to think of, that everything normal and everything wrong and everything right is just decided on human beings, especially in a majority term. So that's why I think obviously as a human being, that's of course everything's going to be so controversial, and there's going to be people against and for, because really there's nothing there to say what actually is right and wrong. Unfortunately, I know it sounds probably bad thing to say.
You're right. The line that we potentially should draw is, would we want this for ourselves? So if we put ourselves in the position of the victim, would it matter to us really whether we were raised on a nice farm where we got to walk around every day and have a bit of sunlight and a bit of freedom versus a cage? Yeah, okay, our treatment would be better if the end result was the same. It would be like offering me a choice now between death by hanging or death by firing squad. The conclusion is exactly the same. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I mean, yeah, a nice farm's better than a nasty farm, but personally, I wouldn't want to be an enslaved. I wouldn't want to be in that situation, full stop. I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't consent to it. I'd want freedom.
See that? No, I agree. I agree with. Well, I see where you come from, and I agree with that statement there. That a lot of people be like that, but it's like what I said. Like there's no actual set in stone thing of what is actually right and wrong. It's just purely based on people's opinions, and that's just the way the world is. Because but I get it. Like it is an interesting concept. It's just a shame that vegans and meat eaters can't kind of come to a middle ground. It's definitely something I feel like everyone gets on the defense, and it's a bit of a shame. I'm not saying that you are, I'm just saying in general, it's so insane how angry and crazy people get.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, the whole purpose really of me and Roger, who's vegan animal rights at the bottom, do these lives is to offer an alternative where it's two people shouting at each other. And nobody can hear what's going on. Nobody can follow the conversation. Like, yeah, I don't think anything gains from that. Like all of my favourite subjects at school, all of the lessons that I learnt the most from were the teachers that I liked and the teachers that I engaged with. All of the ones that I didn't like and just shouted at me or whatever were the subjects that I failed at. So yeah, the way to learn things and the way for us to sort of have a proper discourse is to have a conversation and to share each other's feelings, to share each other's experiences, and to try and come to sort of compromises and conclusions together. Well, I don't see the benefit of. I understand that sometimes it's a very emotive subject, but I just don't see the benefit of it.
There's one thing I don't agree with, which again could be potentially controversial, but how I don't agree with babies not being given milk. I know that's a big thing, but there is some individuals, babies that can't actually breastfeed, whether it's from the mom's issue or the child. But I don't think you should ever force kind of veganism on a child. I do think they should kind of grow up and have what they need based on the NHS, because science is there. But I get what cute bunny bro's saying, because obviously she's on about, he or she on about giving baby cows milk. But I think at the end of the day,
that's what
it's
I was
like
confused
consent,
about.
isn't it,
So
really?
I thought you were talking about like formula, for example, where I was going to say, well, there are plant-based formulas. That's not a problem. But I mean, in terms of cow's milk, well, that's given the wrong species of milk to a baby. Whereas if a mother can't breastfeed for whatever reason, then of course there should be an alternative available, and there is in the form of formula, plant-based formula, and obviously there is in the form of plant-based liquid milks. But saying that they should be given a species of milk that was designed to make baby cows as big as possible, as fast as possible, well, yeah, I would agree with that, because not only is it a rights violation to every cow everywhere for their milk to be taken and for them to have been impregnated and their baby taken, but also it's really bad for people's health. Like it is. I mean, I wouldn't encourage, even if there was no rights violations involved at all, I still wouldn't encourage anyone to be giving their baby dairy.
Sophia, are you still there?
I think they've paused. But yeah, I mean, let's say some way that we could get dairy without rights violations in any way, shape, or form. It would still be really unhealthy, because it's been designed literally to take a baby cow and turn them into an enormous cow.
Not your mom. Let me speak on that for a second. So there's lab created ice creams you can eat now that are completely lactose and animal cruelty free. So that's not a.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to say milk alternatives now, I mean, there's what
They don't have. I'm
plant-based
just saying
one?
they don't have like casein. They don't have
Nope.
casomorphines, which makes
No.
dairy addictive. So they don't have that stuff anymore. But it's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, just for example, just say you've got a particularly picky baby that you can't breastfeed for whatever reasons, and they're picky about them. The fact that the plant-based stuff is, I mean, if you went through them all, there's what, pea, pistachio, cashew, soy, oat, rice, almond, like you've got like a dozen different options you could try until you found one that you liked. Whereas with cow's milk, you've got cow's milk.
Yep. Which, in my weird thing is, like, I don't know about this, but most of us are raised on cow's milk. Like, fuck, man. When I was like milk and cereal for Americans, who, and I don't know about other Western. I know, like, we all have our shitty cereals and stuff, but man, milk, that is like, I talk about it and I'm like, oh my God, give me that milk, And then you find out that like there's compounds in there that cause you cancer, it makes you addicted to it, and it's just a food or a thing you called food, And then there's just these companies that are just touting it because either they didn't know better or they found out and they didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So probably about quartz, I think.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I probably need to go about quarter two.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, yeah, that's fine. It's another 10 minutes or so. Just erased all chickens for a 20 piece. Well, that was your guest request cancelled, because I think we know what you're going to say.
One thing I wanted to say to Sophia, though, too, is I think a lot of people get hung up on the most tangible things that vegans talk about. But vegans feel this way about the absolute most minuscule of multicellular organisms. So ants, worms, mollusks, any seafood creature you deem as an insect, any of those. We feel that same way. but that's not a tangible reality for a lot of people. Like coral. Did people know that coral was an animal? I just found that out and it blew my mind. I was like, oh, great. I can't eat coral anymore. Not that I'd want to,
But no, I
but
think the way that she described it in a couple of times really hit on what is a big issue for our movement, in the sense that most people, because she said, if I'm correct, that there's a couple of vegans in her family, and clearly no one's ever said, well, we're not an anti-cruelty movement, because they probably think that we are. And that's a big misconception, and that's a big problem, because people think that if they can eliminate or minimize the cruelty to some level, that it's okay. Certainly that these things like backyard eggs, for example, or having their own cow in the garden, or any of these other absurd things that people have mentioned in the past, would suddenly make it okay because the treatment process was different. And I mean, I think it's really key that groups like, I don't know what it is in America, but in England it's the RSPCA. They're responsible for preventing cruelty, and they assure all of the things that we stand against. So this isn't the line that we should be taking. It's not the language that we should be using, and it's clearly, as we see day in day out, and that caller, or sorry, the Sophia, the viewer, sort of depicted, is that this language is a problem, and it causes a kind of reduction and dilution to what we actually stand for, to the point that as long as there's no cruelty involved, it's all right to use other animals, and that's absolutely not the case.
Well, this is
Yep.
the problem, isn't it? You know, this idea of, I mean, I think it was said, farmers and vegans should kind of meet each other in the middle, kind of thing. But the problem with that is always our good old friend animal welfareism. It's like saying anti-vivisectionists and vivisectors should meet in, halfway, kind of thing, or circus proprietors and animal rights advocates should meet halfway. It always means animal welfare. Jockeys and vegans should meet halfway. It can only,
So,
it can only
sorry,
get
can I
animal welfare.
interrupt for a second? What is the vivisection and the other one? I wasn't privy to those. It might be an English versus British English thing. I know what vivisection is, but
Essentially
I don't know
encompasses,
the industry.
yeah, so vivisection essentially encompasses animal testing,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
whether that's for food products, whether that's for cosmetics, whether that's for vaccines.
Yeah, it's used wider than the actual technical word now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's I was like
Live cutting and all that. Yeah, that's right. So it's to do with surgical procedures and all that kind
Yeah,
of.
literally anything from what, I mean, I don't know if they still do this in schools anymore, where they dissect a frog, for example. Anything from that to the testing for pharmaceutical encompasses everything that involves testing on animals.
Yeah, although dissection obviously would be dissection, not vivisection, wouldn't it?
But it still comes under the banner of vivisection. If you were
Yeah,
like,
that's I'm like, I don't know. But I'm glad you guys are here to teach me.
but yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's testing on animals, various animals, for various reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's really only the same argument as we get within the movement, because when people make unity claims within the movement, you see that it always sounds so reasonable. Why can't you meet each other halfway and all that kind of stuff? What it basically means is animal welfareism. It always does. Because the radicals have always got to come down a notch.
Absolutely, yeah. As an ex-cow farmer, I can give you my word, I did not hurt my cows, but without them, I'd have no job. I mean, I can accept that on a base level, but what happened to them either when they stopped producing milk as a female, or they were born male?
I think
I truly believe that maybe you personally didn't hurt them.
yeah,
That's not the
the
end of the
thing
line, is it?
would point to is the avoidance of naming animals that you farm. There's a
Yeah,
reason for
I
that.
think that's another point that we can make. That if you hear vegans making this kind of generalization that farmers are murderers, for example, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, so I'm just guesstimating here, but I'd say a huge percentage of farmers do not slaughter their own animals.
Yep.
Yeah, but without wanting to go in too much into animal welfareism, Andy, what about it says here, I did not hurt my cow. So what about things like branding? What about things like
Well,
ear
yeah, I mean,
pumping?
obviously, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, that would be all welfare based, wouldn't it? So the things that are deemed necessary for their use probably wouldn't even be considered hurt, dehorning, that sort of thing.
Even ear tagging.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, ear tagging. I mean, dehorning is quite a nasty looking affair. I mean, there's film of that, but I mean, I think it will probably be claimed that the other animals are not hurt, but they do pull away. They don't like it, especially when all the kind of smoke goes up and
Yeah,
they
I
have to
mean,
be changed.
at the end of the day, it may well be, and I'm happy to give the benefit of the doubt because I don't know for sure, but it may well be just like trimming a dog's nails, claws, for example. And as long as obviously you don't cut the quick, there's no actual pain, but there's definitely stress.
I would posit like declawing cats though. Like people used to think that was super acceptable because they didn't want to be scratched by their cats. By
Yeah,
essentially doing that though, you're literally taking like the first whole knuckle off of a cat.
yeah,
And then when you do that too, like there's other things with cats, like the way we treat them, like with laser pointers and stuff. There's studies that show that when you give cats false positives for catching things from their instincts, it just breaks them. They just like it's like trauma. Like if you use a laser pointer to have fun with your cat and then you're like, haha, you didn't find it. It's literally animal abuse for that animal because they're thinking they're catching this thing and exacting their will on it. And it's a weird thing, but shit like that too.
Jimmy's saying something interesting. We dehorn using
yeah.
paste.
I was going to read that one out because I've not
Yeah.
heard of that
Is that
before.
some kind of caustic substance then, which burns?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to read the same one out of interest. I've never heard of paste before.
No.
They probably glue two cows together and then have them run away in opposite directions.
Or is that? Or do you mean? Hang on. So is it the same? I'm assuming it's the same method, but what he means is the end process is different. Because I'm assuming you still use
No,
the.
I think it means that means you don't have the heat and the iron, which burns, right? But I suppose the paste itself is caustic.
Yeah, but obviously I'm assuming you still use the great big bolt cutter things.
What in dehorning?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be more like I think they would mean that when they burn the buds rather than the actual horns before horns develop.
Right.
I suppose there might be a technical difference between dehorning and debudding.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what's caught us a little bit there.
Yeah, because I mean, I've obviously only in videos and stuff, but I've seen them when they dehorn them and they use like the great big bolt cutter things that are like awkwardly shaped, and then obviously they coagulate afterwards with the heat. And I was assuming that the paste just replaced that heat, but the rest of the process would be the same. But
Yeah,
obviously,
well,
yeah, I
maybe
didn't think about the buds.
yeah, maybe that is part of a little bit of ignorance in terms of the precise terminology there, because debudding, dehorning are presumably not the same.
No, I guess they're different processes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, either way, we're still talking about rights violations here, and we're still talking about potential physical pain, even if that's been reduced some way, somehow. It doesn't have to happen, is the real issue. We can always find ways to do the wrong thing in a slightly better way, but it always remains the wrong thing.
It upset me to send my cows away, and I'm sorry. I 100% never want to offend, but it was just my job. Well, I mean, don't worry about offending us. It's not it doesn't matter about us because we're not your victims. But it's more to do with if you're so upset, you would find something else, which I know is kind of easier said than done as well. Which is why there are quite a few vegan initiatives to help farmers move away from, exploiting cows and move towards exploiting plants, I suppose.
Yep. Yoko's Creamery used to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where they are in the world, but in the UK, for example, there's a couple of different schemes.
Yeah, the only thing about that is that we do know, again, this is a bit of sociology really, is the fact that, if you've got somebody who's trained and they're experienced at a job, and then you say, okay, there's this instead. I mean, the classic example is when the steel yards closed down and the mines closed down. You'd got these people who were experienced, 20 years down the pit, and you'd go, well, here's a computer instead, and they're going, I don't know anything about that. I mean, it was even called a crisis of masculinity in certain northern towns, for example, right?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. And I mean, the compromise potentially that we're offering or suggesting would be the equivalent of coming out of one mine and going down a different mine. Essentially, we're not. No, I don't think anyone is asking farmers to stop farming. They're asking them to stop farming others and look
no, but there
into.
would be quite a significant change, though, Andy, that we
Of
have to.
course, of course, I'm not. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. But at least it's the same industry. There's a whole lot of different things to learn and everything. Absolutely, I accept that. But we've also got to give sort of credit to the fact that a lot of these farmers, for example, that have farm animals also grow a lot of their own plants. So some of them have already got a decent level of experience in these things, who are potentially
Yeah,
going to teach
that's
them.
an interesting one. That's almost like just a sliding scale in terms of supply and demand, almost there. That if they've already got
Exactly that. The infrastructure potentially already exists, even if it's only in
You
what
would
should we
have
call
to
it,
heavily
minority.
subsidize it.
yeah,
But
but
yeah,
but,
that's
but that's the
exactly
idea,
it.
though. That's the idea.
It has to be funded and it has to be supported. But there are
Yep.
definitely a lot of farms out there. I'm not going to say it's anything like 50%, but they've got a percentage where they already grow a decent amount of their own silage, for example, or anything else. And so there is already some starting foundation there that can be built on. And that's
Because
what
isn't
would be the
there
potential solution. We're not saying farmers should be out of work and that they should give up their livelihoods and go
yeah,
and
for
farm.
sure.
And no one wants that.
Nope. Isn't there something being done too with whales and their sheep/goat manufacturing or agriculture? Like they're not able to do it maybe at the level that they were, so they're trying to find alternatives. But because their land is so untillable that like you have to you know do certain
Yeah,
extremes and stuff like that.
I don't know how many he's actually got or in the process of setting up, but I know the guy or the family Dyson. They've brought a ridiculous amount of land with the potential of setting up vertical farms all over the place to try this
Yep.
out. And Wales is one of those key places that they're looking to try because it ticks the boxes in terms of the weather's crap, the land isn't suitable, it's all hilly, but like potentially for vertical farming, none of that will matter. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
perfect way to prove the concept. That's how he's looking at it.
You ought to be a weather forecaster. And now for Wales, the weather's crap.
But let's be
Yeah.
honest, it gets a hell of a lot more rain and wind than England does. There's a hell of a lot more slopes than there are in England and stuff. So yeah, in terms of land, a lot of people could make the argument that it's not suitable for growing, but it is suitable for potential change and transition to vertical farming. Yeah, especially some of the buildings that already exist but are not being utilised.
So
Yep.
is that the Dyson family as in Hoovers?
Within Hoovers, yeah.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, at the moment, in terms of vertical farming moving forward, I think I can't remember if it's Jeffrey or Jeremy Dyson is the main guy, but he's
You never told me that before. I've been asking you about updates about
yeah,
this.
I don't know how far they've got or anything. This isn't new news. I mean, this is like probably nearly 3 years ago that it was kind of announced that this is what they started doing. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, in terms of money and stuff, I think he's the kind of pioneer of this thing going forward.
Keeping that to yourself, Andy?
Yeah. What's
There's
happening,
there's
man?
nothing to really tell. I just know that they brought a load of land and he basically had brought a load of equipment and that's what they plan to do. But we've never had like a this is where we are so far. This is where we're at sort of thing. So there's no updates on it. But
Yeah.
that's
Vertical farming is
just
insane.
one person, I suppose, one individual that's doing it. There's nothing stopping other people doing it. But yeah, I mean, and again, to repeat something I find myself repeating most days, vertical farming is just one thing that we can already do, that already exists, and the technology exists. For all I know, in another 10, 15, 20 years, there might be a completely new method that we haven't even invented yet because the demand wasn't there for it to be invented. We don't often look at change unless we're forced to look at change. And
Okay.
quite often after that, we can come up with things real quick.
There's a
Yep.
there's a website called Dyson Farming.
It's just a picture of their vacuums.
Well, that's the weird thing. It's got deals, vacuum cleaners, hair care, air purifiers, headphones, lighting, Dyson Live.
That's the real problem.
And
Having two different
Dyson
businesses.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we have to take into consideration with all this is that Dyson are at the end of the day a business. So they're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart, or they're doing it because of any ethical reasons.
Oh,
they're
you've
looking
ruined
at
it
this
for
and
me now,
thinking,
Andy.
if we can be the first people that set this up and get it to work, we can patent all the technology and we'll be set for life. That's what they're thinking, I'm sure. But
Yeah, you've totally ruined it for me now. I thought they were doing it.
But with that in mind, once that happens, it means that it's going to get a hell of a lot of investment, a hell of a lot of marketing, a hell of a lot of promotion, and obviously the onus is on them to make money. So
Yep.
that's only a good thing from our point of view.
It would be very interesting to find out what, because I guarantee you that family lobbies against America, like our interest for our government. It would just be funny to see what they're doing in terms of contributions to certain people.
They call it a regenerative system. Food innovation. Yeah, Dyson Farming. Getting the best from the land. A packet of frozen peas, a pint of beer, loaf of bread. What? Peas, potatoes, barley, maize.
But yeah, I do want to make that really clear that like I'm not by any means suggesting that they're doing this from a vegan point of view. They're doing this from a capitalist point of view. But yeah,
Oh,
it all helps the
They've
cause
got a
going forward.
livestock section too. So
we're just having a laugh. It's like it's just so ridiculous.
yeah, Dyson hoovering up the vertical farming market.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these things start somewhere, and one day it will get to the point where I mean, the one thing that I can say about Dyson, I don't know too much about their ethics as a company, but their products have got really sort of high levels of endurance and lastability, which doesn't sort of it's not very common in this day and age that you get something that
I
comes with
mean,
guarantee.
the TikTok shop would disagree.
But yeah, I mean, at work they've got a Dyson with like a 10-year guarantee, and every time it breaks, they get a brand new replacement and stuff. So like, they're not that bad as a company in that regard.
Cranston hoovers eggs with his ass. That's what it says on the screen. Just wanted to point that out.
That's the future.
Cranston
Okay.
hoovers eggs with his ass. Okay.
Have a listen to this though, Andy. It says that in Wyoming, there's generally been two kind of events in the, two kind of things going on in the winter: snow sports and recovering from them. But now it looks like vertical farming is providing an answer to that. In other words, they're doing exactly what we're saying, that they're bringing in this technology in order to get around the weather problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if you can put something in a building essentially, and you thermostatically control, even from a phone these days, because people control their central heating from their mobile phones, then yeah, everything can potentially be automated. If you've got like a water-based system, then it doesn't even necessarily need a human being to be there a lot of the time. So yeah, going forward, this sky's the limit with this thing.
Yeah, it says this robot-tended vertical farm will grow 1,000 metric tons of greens per year.
Does it say how big the farm is?
Let me click on that.
Because obviously, I can't remember who we had on the other day, but remember someone said they had an acre and they couldn't even grow enough food for their family.
Yes, I know.
2 square
So,
meters.
yeah, listening to what you've just said, there's a bit of a difference there. But obviously, it depends on the size of the farm.
It says 75,000 square feet.
I don't know what that would work out is.
No, so it's
Pretty much a warehouse.
14 shells high. Okay, so yeah, so that's the thing. You see, you're kind of breaking all the rules, but then you see a lot of people will oppose it on that basis. Oh, I like mine. That has been under sunshine, this kind of stuff, right?
So,
That's why I advocate
5,000
against.
square feet is 1.7 acres, so not even 2
Yeah.
acres.
That's why I try to avoid demonization against the word process and trying to get actually into it. And then the same with GMOs, because with GMOs, we can literally splice genes from plants into other plants.
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
things we're worried about are that splicing of animal genes into plants, which we've been doing to do. I think we've been doing it for like life-saving measures, which survival, right? But like
Yeah,
splicing a
absolutely.
pig
And I mean,
gene into a broccoli to create a drug. You know,
yeah, I mean, and on that exact note, again, going back to the fact that we don't look in this particular direction anymore because there's no real demand to. But once upon a time, like we just had the wild mustard plant, and then we hybridized that into what kale, cabbage, sprouts, cauliflower. So, like,
Yep.
if that was the direction that we were looking again at going forward, like we've got these plants, what else can we potentially make out of them? Like I've seen videos not on TikTok, like proper process videos on YouTube where they've created a hybrid tomato potato plant where it's potato under the ground and tomato above. Like just that kind of radicalization. Imagine that being vertical farmed.
Yep.
Like
Tomato.
the potential is there, but we've never looked like that before. We've never wanted to do that before.
Indeed. Right, I'm going to quit,
Yeah, no,
gentlemen.
it's fine. I mean, it's 12 now anyway, so I will say goodbye to everyone. Cranston, I'm assuming that's your name, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not my real name, but
Oh,
I
but
thank you guys for having me and
yeah, no worries.
being a
Thanks so
part.
much for joining, and it's lovely to have you. And thanks so much everyone in the chat for chatting away, and the guests that did come on. Hopefully Sophia thinks about some of the things that we said.
Okay. Yeah. Until next time, folks.
See you later tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. We'll see.